It's not about doors. It's not about text. It's not about phones. It's not about emails. Or it's about a solid plan that utilizes all of those aspects in an appropriate way. And people can't get people to knock doors anymore for free. They can't get volunteers out. It's about building a relationship with them. And far too often it's an abusive relationship.
The number one most important thing is actually putting your volunteers first. Without them, you can't knock any doors. So if you have a people who you think are your winning team, once your campaign ends, don't forget about those people because next time you can still rely on them.
All right, I'm Caitlin Huxley, and this is The Art of Campaigns, where I talk election strategy with industry experts. Today I'm joined by Elijah Day and Madisyn Pettit from Patriot Grassroots. Elijah is the president and CEO, and Madisyn is the director of operations. Tell us a little bit about that.
We do anything that has to do with a human interacting with another human. Things like texting and phone banking, as well as petitioning. Most of what we do is door-to-door canvassing. And then we also do, we call it like guerrilla tactics or guerrilla warfare campaigns, like going to subway stations and talking to people, or passing out newspapers. So a lot of fun different things, but just anything that has to do with a human communicating with another human, we do.
So basically what I'm looking for here is a bit of advice that the average campaign would never think about.
Recently I've been thinking more about constituent services, and this has kind of been Elijah's new baby that, he's tried to bring in as a service that we can offer.
Yeah, I think I would categorize it as maybe long form canvassing. And a lot of times in our space, we don't really think super far ahead, but something that we've been pushing people to start thinking a little bit ahead of schedule. So instead of doing the 3 months out, how about we start 6 months out or 9 months out? And instead of doing this like large scale, let's throw a ton of money in and we're going to have 300 people come in and they're all going to knock for 8 hours a day. It's let's get 3 or 4 really good canvassers to go to very targeted areas, and let's chip away at these people. Let's build support by listening to the constituents. And so the way that we can make a difference is by building up trust months early. And we just go and we knock on their door and we say, I'm Elijah and I'm here with Representative so-and-so. What's happening here that's really bothering you? Like, let's go micro. Is it that I noticed when I was driving in that light down the road is not working correctly? Is that bugging you? We need to fix that sign. We need to fix that light. Okay, great. I'm going to go pass that on. And they can start doing just really small things. And now I've got a household of maybe 3 voters that are now maybe wouldn't have voted, but now they've been personally impacted by that incumbent. And so instead of knocking thousands of doors a day, we're knocking a few hundred, but we're getting good data back, and we're getting people who might want to do testimonial videos later for the candidate. And you have time to do something about it because you're not mired in 5 million other things, which I've been pushing for years, but finally getting traction of like, stop trying to shove your whole door program into a 3-month or less window and start planning ahead to make a big impact or make a big difference.
We as people who eat, sleep, and breathe politics really sometimes forget that the average person, the average voter, they don't. And then another thing, just getting petitions signed at the doors year round. You can find something that's kind of small and it gets people excited. They'll sign for it, but it's not what the goal is. The goal might be to get someone on the ballot.
So you're talking issue petitioning more than ballot access petitioning.
Yes, so if we get an issue and we push it at the doors, we're going out there and we're identifying voters and kind of what's important to them, and then we know whether or not they're a registered voter as we validate that petition. Then the campaign forevermore will have that voter's information, where they live, how they feel about this issue, and they're going to know whether or not that they're going to align with their candidate and how to meet them. So that's kind of something that isn't used often, but it is a good way to identify your voters in kind of an obscure way. They don't realize that they're being identified because, you're using an issue petition.
So taking the time to engage with that grassroots, to build that personalized connection and improving your data long term, which I'm always a fan of. I really like issue petitions. Not enough campaigns really spend the time to go out and, we always ask at the doors, what's your top issue? But if you go out with something that your candidate has as one of his top issues, you can then check the community at large and open that conversation. All these good ideas make me wonder about the bad ideas that campaigns often come up with, every campaign that I run into. They have these county party leaders who have been doing this for the last 20 years, 30 years, longer. And their go-to move is to knock on every door that has an American flag, or to just knock on every door. They're really doing what, of course, we consider to be inefficient, ineffective. And so I wonder why it is that these methods, even if they don't bear fruit, are so pervasive within the industry. Do you guys have any insights on that?
I think that it happens because of a couple things. One, it's lack of access. In state parties, a lot of times there is access to an app and maybe some targeting, but in order to get really good targeting, you're going to have to spend some money. Unfortunately, at the county side, sometimes it seems like they get ignored when they need help on something, like they need training or whatever it is, and sometimes it just takes a little long for people to get around to it. And I think as time progresses, we are going to naturally see this issue resolve itself. I mean, it wasn't very long ago that people were using printed out pieces of paper with names on it and writing notes and then handing those into the campaigns, and that's been phased out. And if we can educate county parties and state parties, and when you have a campaign where it's a freshman candidate running with a freshman campaign manager who's not even getting paid because it's his first gig, we just need education on resources, and that there is a way to access these things without having a bajillion dollars.
So I really like the focus on education. It's something that I focused on when I was the exec direct of the local county party. And it's really something that I've tried to push in all my campaigns. And it's really nice to see industry giants like Patriot Grassroots pushing such a thing as well. So with the addition of technology, like you say, right, more people have access to it. And it's true that the more campaigns I go to nowadays, the less I'm seeing those paper walkbooks and more I'm seeing them using some sort of app. And yeah, it costs money, but it just seems like almost everyone has access to it now. It is also causing maybe a new problem where people are targeting wrong. What should campaigns stop targeting or start targeting?
What I would say, we have a core value in our company, which is we don't make assumptions, we ask the extra questions. You can't assume certain people are for or against you necessarily. And so sometimes you'll get a candidate or you'll get something that's going on and you'll be like, well, we're not going to canvass that neighborhood, or we're not going to message that neighborhood, send mail to the neighborhood because that neighborhood's voting for Susie. But you can't just assume those kinds of things. You need to get out into those areas and maybe it's true, but also maybe it's not. And you need to get people out there. You need to be having those conversations. You can't just forget about complete markets because you assume that historically that person or that neighborhood won't support me in this race.
I think that's a really good insight. Thank you. So one of the things you said was that you have knocked on now hundreds of thousands of doors personally, right? For a lot of these down ballot races, folks who cannot afford to hire one of us or cannot outsource to an organization, there's obviously a difference in the approach of their field team, of their field staff. Like you said, that first-time campaign manager who might not even be getting paid this time. Is there something that you guys would suggest to them, some secret sauce that they could do, one or two things right now to upgrade their field campaigns, to really improve?
Yeah, so one of our things that we say very often is our canvassers is actually our number one customer. If we don't have them, we can't knock any doors. The number one most important thing is actually putting your volunteers first. Without them, you can't knock any doors. So you just need to, I think, take a step back and really show your volunteers what they are worth and what they mean to you. People are more likely to want to keep a promise or follow through with something whenever they do feel like you are relying on them and you actually don't take it for granted. So I think just showing the gratitude to your volunteers, letting them know what the mission is, but at the same time, not shoving it down their throat. Like, if you don't do this, we're going to lose. It needs to be framed in a way of, I want you to do this here with us because, you help us win.
Yeah, we're in a relationship business. That's really what this is. Everything in politics is relationship. Ultimately, what you're doing is not just about asking them to work. It's about building a relationship with them. And far too often in this space, it's an abusive relationship from the party or the candidate to the volunteers. It's like, get over here, come make these phone calls. I need your help right now. I donate $5, do this, do that, do this. And then all of a sudden November happens. It's like, okay, bye. Don't talk to him for months. And then 8 months later, hey, where you at? I need you to make phone calls. You need to stay active in the community. You need to stay active with the people, and you need to maintain relationships once you've began them.
I would add that if this is something that you do and something that you want to do, then your job really doesn't end when the campaign does. There will be another one that pops up. And if you have a people who you think are your winning team, you want to make sure that you can carry them, throughout your career and as you move forward. I help them remain employed, and they help me win campaigns, and that's the stuff that we hold near and dear to us. And so I think that that's something that people could do more, even in just like their locales, is once your campaign ends, don't forget about those people that helped you either win or get really close to winning, because next time you can still rely on them, and they'll feel inclined to want to help you pull that off, because they just know that they enjoy working with you, and whatever you stand for is something that doesn't do wrong by them.
Last episode, I talked to a fundraiser, and one of the things we talk about when we talk about fundraising nowadays is the churn and burn of these small dollar donors. Elijah threw out one of the things we ask these phone bankers, these door knockers to do is donate $5, donate $10, buy a yard sign, whatever. And when we look specifically at these small dollar donors, we know that burning them out is a problem long term. But this is something that's really endemic to politics as a whole. I think we've become so good at the business of campaigns that we've lost the grassrootsness of campaigns, the real personal connections that people want to have with their local electeds, with their politicians, with their candidates, with the local party. So if I, as like you said, Madisyn, am on this campaign for 2 years and then I'm done, then I really don't care what happens to these folks after I'm done. I think a lot of candidates are not thinking long-term enough to maintain their community, maintain their small dollar donors.
I'll add, people can't get people to knock doors anymore for free. They can't get them to make phone calls. They can't get volunteers out. And so our company exists because of that. And we'd be happy to not exist if it meant that people were civically active because they want to be, and because they're being taken care of.
Yeah, I think it's super easy to get a text outside of the cycle from, somebody who you worked with during the cycle, and just kind of roll your eyes and lock your phone and put it down and be like, I'm not being paid to manage this conversation at the moment. But the thing is one day you will, and you're going to wish that you had that contact and that relationship still there and present for you.
Okay. Yeah. So if you guys are suggesting, that the best volunteers from the community, and that what I really need to be doing is building that community on my campaign anyway, why hire a professional firm? Why not just hire one staffer, get that college kid who isn't paid? You guys said you train him for free. So why hire you instead of in-housing it?
In 2019, we were doing a project in Louisiana, and it was a size that was good enough for us to run a test. We had historically, before this, tried to do all of our staff fully local. And so recently, before this project, we had started the travel program, where we would pay for people to travel. And we were trying to do local because it kept our door rates down, and so it was more competitive. So we did a test. We had 4 groups of people that we were testing. So we had a group of volunteers, local-based volunteers. We had a group of volunteers that traveled in, and we covered their hotel, their transportation. We had our paid locals, and we had our paid travel-in canvassers. So we had these 4 groups, and this project spanned about a month. And what we were testing was how long people worked. We were seeing what their quality of work looked like. We were seeing how quickly they worked. We were seeing how many breaks they took and how long those breaks were. We were measuring all these things. And then we were taking the dollar amount it took for us to run those people, or the effort that we were putting into getting them to go work, what that meant. So we signed them all dollar amounts, and we signed them all hours of work. what we found
That's really cool.
was that our travel in paid canvassers cost less for us to run than any of the other groups. And it was because
Wild.
yeah, the people, the volunteers that we traveled in, they would go out and work, but they took more breaks than any other group. They would go out, they'd knock a
And
few
this is
doors.
like the young Republicans getting
Yeah,
bussed
like that
in
kind of
for
stuff. Yep.
Okay.
Like that kind of organization. They're buddying up with people, so they're like spending more time talking to each other, and they're also starting later because they spent the night before drinking all night, and then they're going home earlier because they want to get back to drinking at the end of the day and spending time with their buddies. The local volunteers, they've just got stuff going on. Like, and same with the paid locals. Like they've got stuff going on. But you know who's showing up to work? It's the people that are traveling in. They don't have any ties to the area necessarily. They are coming in to work. That is their whole goal. That was the best thing that we learned. And so we have spent a ton of time recruiting, training, retaining, and optimizing a workforce, something that campaigns just don't have the time to do because they're not designed to do that. They are designed to be a short-term period thing.
Do you guys have anything that you want to pitch while we're on here? Is there a program that you guys are hyped about?
I think that people who are listening to this podcast might be listening because they want to learn more. And so we do a free leadership training called Patriot Academy. It's a couple months, but it turns out to just be a couple weeks because we do, one or two classes for the duration of an hour every month. So it's not a big commitment, but it is volunteer based. Whenever you're done with that course, you have good knowledge about the field, about business, about just kind of different things that help you be professional and succeed in this business.
Okay, and so is that online? Is that in person? If I'm a local party, can I order it?
It's a virtual thing. We do a Zoom call or a Google Meets call, and we, like Madisyn said, it's 1 to 2 meetings a month over a period of about 6 months. If someone's interested, we don't say no to anybody. Anyone's able. We've done some of this stuff with some of the state parties. It's not actually a product that we've really sold. We've offered it for free for the state parties and the county parties and stuff, and we'd be happy to continue doing so for anyone. If it's good for the party, it's good for the candidates, it's good for everybody to be doing that.
Okay, and if I want to join one of these Patriot Academies, where do I go?
Go to patriotgrassroots.com and you can fill out a form on there.
Okay, and so I'm a moderate, and a lot of the people who I network with, who I work with, are moderates. Some are even liberals. Is it open to anybody, or do I have to be a right winger?
Yeah, I mean, we have people of differing backgrounds. We have got people who are of more moderate viewpoints on the team, and really what we're going over isn't necessarily super political, although we're going to have conservative talking points and all those things. If you're a liberal, you're probably not going to get future opportunities with us. But you're welcome to listen in if you would like.
So it sounds like you guys are doing a lot to engage the community, to keep people active. You're really fighting against that long-term burnout that we've been seeing over the last, I don't know, decade or so. Doors are really, really tiring. I don't know that there's anybody who's knocked doors who hasn't just looked at their app and said, oh, not this one, and just marked it not home or something to skip it. We've all done it,
Yeah.
So as the campaign gets long and as I get exhausted and hot and tired of talking to these people, what are your best practices for keeping morale high on your team?
So circling back to what I said earlier, and I'll say this every single time I'm asked this question, it's really showing gratitude to your team, making sure that they feel like they are more than just a number or a metric to you. As morale drops, just having that relationship remain the forefront. We're all kind of here in the trenches. As they wear out at the doors, we're wearing out cutting walkbooks at 4 a.m. Everybody's getting tired, and I think that just sharing that, almost like commiseration, it makes it lighter on all of us. Just having constant, communications and making sure that they feel supported, is going to be, a really great way to keep people involved. We have people who knock 8 hours a day plus from August to November every single year. And they would say that like the number one thing that keeps them involved is just knowing that they're supported.
How do you guys ensure quality control when people do inevitably get burnt out? Do what you can to try and reduce that burnout, but some amount is going to happen and it's going to affect the quality of those conversations. Do you guys have a special system?
Yeah, well, I'll start by saying because we recruit nonstop throughout the cycle, even up to the last day, we constantly have fresh bodies coming in throughout the duration of the
So
whatever
reserves,
project we're
folks
working
in
on.
the reserve. That's
Yeah,
actually good. I
exactly.
think
Yeah. So we just keep going. Like you never stop recruiting. We recruit very heavily in the off cycle because you get these people in reserves, and when you're out knocking doors, you're by yourself, and you've got this app, and you've got to wake up, and you've got to get ready, and you've got to go drive to your area by yourself. Like you have to have a lot of drive and initiative. There are a lot of people that don't have that, but they still want to be involved, and so they cut corners. Inevitably, there's going to be dishonest people that come with that, and people that want to cheat the system, especially when there's money. There's money around it, and so we have invested our own money into data integrity software that we've developed ourselves to stop this kind of stuff. Who's moving too fast? Who's moving too slow? It's flagging all of these things, all of these data metrics that don't make sense. Something that's big that's happened over the past few years is spoofing, location spoofing, which is where canvassers use apps or tools to make it look like they're in a certain spot working when they're actually even states away. They're able to make it look like they are canvassing in the neighborhoods that they're working in. But additionally, on top of that, we've now incorporated AI into this process. So as we feed in the numbers, our AI system will immediately text some of these flags and tell them, like, you're moving too quickly. It's even stuff like, hey, you're doing a great job, but if you just did this in addition to what you're doing, it would boost your conversation rate up by 0.5%. And so it gives feedback, it coaches, it trains as people are working.
That's cool. So it sounds like you guys have the tech down locked. I'm not sure, that if I was managing a down ballot campaign, I'd be able to mimic a lot of that. There's this famous quote from Charlie Munger: if you show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome. If we pay you by the hour, you're going to go real slow. If we pay you by the conversation, you're going to fake some conversations. If we pay you by the door, you're going to fake some doors. It's funny how if you pay volunteers a little bonus for every yard sign they get, suddenly they get hundreds of yard signs, and you show up to people's doors with yard signs they didn't know that they had coming. In what way do you guys use the incentive structure of your canvassers to encourage the fraud either not happen or happen in a way that doesn't get in there and gunk up my data?
We have discussed doing different ways multiple times, and we've found that hourly is the way to go. We also, with that comes a tagline of how many doors per hour is expected. We do that on a case-by-case basis. Sometimes on a project, the average is 20 doors per hour, but then we have somebody in a really rural area where maybe their average is going to be closer to 13 or 14. So there's different things that'll go into how many doors per hour someone needs to hit.
Talking to these folks at these rural doors, there is a group of folks who live in precincts that are walkable, right? And they are obviously the easiest ones to get a hold of. And so they're the ones that folks walk. We knock the doors again and again and again. And when we look at what gets skipped in walk books, it is apartment buildings. It is these neighborhoods where the houses are just way too far away from each other. And you talked a little bit about data integrity. You mentioned, if it takes you 5 minutes to get from this door to that, well, 5 minutes is a really long time. And I'm not sure I want somebody to try 12 doors an hour. For making it easier in rural areas, I like to have someone drive and then have 2 people riding in the back. They can drive around and pick people up, drop them off, make it easier to get from house to house. I've tried sneaking into apartment complexes, and none of these things are super effective. How do I knock doors in a non-walkable neighborhood?
I would say that there's no special trick. It just sucks. And so you just have to be willing to do something. You have to be willing to do something that's hard. It's a lot cooler for me to reach out to the media and do a press release or do an interview and say, yeah, we just knocked on 2 million doors yesterday. But you know what looks best is on election day winning by 3%, 5%, 10%.
Yeah, I think there is no trick to making rural doors easier, gated doors easier, apartment doors easier. Just being transparent and telling them, hey, this is going to suck. And then just staying in touch with them every hour or two. Just being their support system and remaining transparent with them is best.
You know, we hear a lot about the power of face-to-face conversations. Us staffers talk a lot about it. This is obviously the best way to recruit a new volunteer, to ID a supporter, etc. And I believe it. But when I talk to mail vendors, you know, they're telling me that mail is the best way to cut through the noise. And you talk to a text vendor and they say the same thing. If you talk to a digital ad vendor, they're going to tell you everyone watches YouTube. I believe firmly, and I think we all do, that a real personal connection with a voter is one of the best ways to have a personal connection with a voter. I have a really hard time convincing candidates who don't want to spend the cash, don't want to spend the time on something as expensive as doors. What do you guys say when someone says that there's more cash efficient ways to reach voters?
Yeah, I mean, I would start off by saying that I think a problem in the industry is people trying to take credit for everything. It's just that, like, it's not about doors, it's not about text, it's not about phones, it's not about emails or any of those things. It's about a solid plan that utilizes all of those aspects in an appropriate way. And everyone always wants to say, well, it was our effort that won that race. And the reality is, it probably wasn't your effort. It probably was the effort combined. With that being said, I do believe that ultimately the way to reach voters is through human interaction. How they're going to vote, it can really make the difference in really getting those people to vote.
Cool, thank you. So I was talking about mail just the other day to some mail vendor, and you know, the way I use mail on my campaign is blanketing a neighborhood that I know I'm going to walk soon, following up with people that I talk to and sending them that, you know, we call it a bounce back, a little postcard that says, hey, it was great to talk to you. Here's the next step you can take. Do you guys integrate with other outreach forms like this? Do you advocate to candidates that you're hired by to send texts before and after, to follow up with mail?
It's not a product we do or push, but we have done it. We've done lots of things where they've sent blanket texts either before or after us going there, or they've done mail pieces after we've canvassed an area before.
But you have done it, and how do you feel it changes the
Oh yeah, it's
dynamic when
great.
you're at those
It's
doors?
always good. It's always good because I mentioned before that everything we do is supplemental. So the best thing to do is to include all these different forms of outreach and have a good strategic plan. And so by implementing these different pieces in coordination and by making them work together, that's the best field program that you can have. That's the best mail program you can have, or phone program, is by doing them all together and making them work together.
I think some ones that we've seen are, you know, whenever they get a text before saying, hey, we're in your area, someone might come knock on your door, and then we knock on the door. Our conversation rate is higher than ever because people are expecting us to go from door to door in their neighborhood. Then they have the conversation with us. And then after we get all the data points, we give them back to the campaign. I think hitting it with a mail piece after, that's going to be the perfect storm to really move one whole neighborhood all at once.
Okay, and so you guys have mentioned a few times that this really comes back to that plan, that campaign plan that you and I both know campaigns almost never have. And as somebody whose core business is pretty much doing district analysis and writing those campaign plans, what should campaigns be doing differently in the planning and strategy phase before you're ever taken on to really maximize a field organization?
Yeah, good question. I think they just need to know what direction their campaign, like they need to have a knowledge of who they're targeting. Like what does winning mean in this race? Does it mean that we win by 5%, and where's that 5% coming from? Defining who the voter is going to be. Once you have that, then you're able to start executing on how you're going to reach out to them and the different forms of outreach: your phone banking, your texting, your emails, your your mail, your doors, and how am I going to make those pieces work together? And what do I have money for?
Me and you, Caitlin, have seen where we are working with a campaign and it becomes about something other than how to get votes. Maybe it becomes into how does the candidate get more clout? You have to spread the message. And so I think keeping your eye on that prize and the long term is how we can, overall pull off a win.
Okay. And so the last thing on the list here, I'm a big fan of Advantage. I like Nation Builder. There's this new program called Common, but it's with a Q. So I really like a number of these programs, but obviously you guys are nationwide. You see a lot of different campaigns. They all have their own preference, and you have to do your best to integrate. Is there one or two that you think are just the bee's knees?
I'll echo you, Caitlin. That's generally been our default, is to work with Advantage. But we've also worked the past couple years with Numenar. Something that's been great about Numenar is their customer service, and they're pretty new. But they've been very open to changing things or fixing things or making things better in order to improve the app, for both the front end, the canvasser side of things, but also the back end for us when we're trying to oversee projects and run things.
All right, that about covers it. I really appreciate you guys being on, taking the time to speak with me. I think the listeners really learned a lot, because I know I did.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, and yeah, thanks for letting us share some insight.